John Monino with Milton Township. I'm also with the Township officials of DuPage. Today I have our own DuPage County Judge, Felice. How are you today, Judge?
Good, John. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you being here, Richard, if you don't mind me calling you that.
Not a problem.
Okay.
That's great.
Hey, can we jump right into this whole COVID thing? How are you dealing with that on a judge level? Are you seeing cases currently?
Well, I appreciate that question. Actually, I have. I'm in the Domestic Relations Division, and of course, with the recent developments, it's been a challenge for people to gain access to justice. So we've been handling emergency matters. We have a rotation of emergency duty judges, which I'm one of, as well as more routine matters. But beyond that, starting on May 18th, by a new administrative order in the 18th Judicial Circuit, we're going to have virtual court. We're going to allow people to access court on regular matters, motion call, which will then be available starting on that date. So the judges in that division will be there from early morning until late in the afternoon to handle matters. And I think that's going to be a real plus for people that need to get that access.
Absolutely. If I could be so bold, how long have you been practicing like that? Being an attorney and then getting into being a judge?
So I've been an attorney for 40 years. My entire practice has been here in DuPage County, and I've had the benefit of being with a firm when I first started out, which is a local firm in Wheaton. Then I branched out into my own firm here in Wheaton as well. And my practice had been varied in the early years, so I've had an opportunity to handle during that duration just about all kinds of matters, whether they be transactional court matters. Tried hundreds of cases, both criminal and civil, misdemeanors, felonies, jury trials. But in the last probably 15 to 20 years, it's been concentrated in family law.
That's great. Well, I definitely know of your background and following you along several years here, Judge. It's impressive to watch you. And you've been living in DuPage County for, why don't you go ahead and
Well, I've been living here in DuPage County for same amount of time, 40 years. And actually here with my wife, Marnell, we nearly as long we've been married. We have a son, Dan, who also lives in Wheaton.
I know Dan.
So he's a great kid, real help to all of us. But it's been a wonderful community to have prospered and lived in all these years. And you can see why people like to stay in this community, because it is such a great place to raise a family.
The township is great too.
It is.
What type of practice did you have as an attorney?
So, again, in the last number of years, it was primarily in that domestic relations field. So that would include handling matters involving child issues, custody issues. Now we call it the allocation of parental rights and responsibilities. Yes. Matters involving guardian ad litem work, which I did. I did the guardian ad litem work not only in the matrimonial system. I did it as an individual where I was a conflict attorney in juvenile court. So actually not actual guardian work, but a conflict lawyer handling and trying cases, as well as guardian ad litem and disabled persons, and adoption cases as well. So all of those matters, including matters of child support, maintenance, dissolution of marriages, pre-decree, post-decree, all of the areas really were part of what I did on a daily basis. And I was in court almost every day during that duration.
Well, what was your involvement in the community, including bar association and community activities?
Well, I was very fortunate. I started out being active with the local bar association, which is the DuPage County Bar, Countywide Bar Association here in Wheaton. That's where its office is located. So I worked through the ranks and was a director and ultimately became president of the DuPage County Bar, which was a real opportunity to serve the community as a lawyer and as someone who could do some positives, which I think we did during that period of time. I then, from there, went to the Illinois State Bar Association, first as a director, and then I moved up and was elected as an Illinois State Bar president. I served in that capacity most recently, and that would have been in the period of 2014 for a year, in that range to 2015. And then in addition to that, I also became the chair of the Illinois Mutual Insurance Company, which is the company that insures Illinois lawyers statewide. So I also had an opportunity to work in that capacity, among many other things. I served on the Federal Magistrate Committee appointed by the federal court to select magistrate judges, and also an opportunity to be appointed by the Illinois Supreme Court to the Rules Committee. Supreme Court Rules Committee is the rulemaking body, which made rules that governs lawyers and the work they do.
Well, I know being in real estate, I understand you touched on some of our fields.
I did.
And you were a teacher of
I did.
teaching us brokers how to handle business and everything else.
So in my early years, it seems like there's quite a bit of landscape. In my early years, from roughly 1978 to 1988, I was licensed at that time by the Department of Professional Regulation, and I taught at that time sales and brokers courses. Now it's all brokers. But I did that not only on the basic course studies, but I also taught the reviews for all of these different locations, and I used to do that right before the state test. I got to the point, frankly, John, that I had committed the course to memory. So when I used to teach the reviews on Saturday, I didn't really need my book. I had done it so frequently that I pretty much had it memorized, which was kind of unusual, but made it a little bit easier.
Well, that just goes to show what kind of a judge you're going to be, because real estate, anybody that's taken that course, it's not an easy one. So
it's certainly
to say
not.
that you memorized it, that's pretty impressive. Well, now that you're a sitting circuit court judge, you were assigned, and what work do you do in the court system?
Well, I was originally appointed last year as a circuit court judge for a vacancy. Was a unanimous appointment by the Illinois Supreme Court.
Yes.
So in the very early part of that process, when I first got on the bench, I was in traffic misdemeanor. I've since, as indicated, moved to the family law court, the domestic relations field. So where I currently sit now, I hear all the facets of domestic relations work, which could include returns on orders of protection that involve a divorce case or a de-designation. I also handle motion call, which could be a variety of things, both before a divorce is over with, as well as after the divorce, called post-decree. Handle prove-ups when people are ready to get a divorce, and of course handle underlying trials, which are the ultimate resolution in a divorce case when people can't resolve their differences by agreement. All of those components are available in the court I sit in every day, which is fairly routine, but for me, I consider it anything but. This is probably the most important area of law, and the reason for it is that this is when people are really going through some tough times and they need resolution of their difficulties. So I think every sitting domestic relations judge takes the seriousness of the matter and how important it is for each and every one of those individuals to come before these courts.
Incredibly well said.
Thank you.
Explain the difference between circuit court judge and associate judge and the process of becoming a judge.
Certainly. So circuit court judges typically would be appointed when there's a vacancy, could be a retirement, a death, or some other reason. And then after that appointment, they have to run in the next election, which means that in order to keep your job as a circuit court judge, you have to run in the next general election, which is, of course, where I'm in right now for 2020. A circuit court judge, thus, is voted by the public at large to keep their position. And once they're voted in as a circuit court judge in the general election, then they're up for retention every 6 years. It's an up or down whether they're retained.
Right.
Circuit court judges will be the judges who appoint the associate judges. So here in DuPage County, we have 15 circuit court judges, 31 associate judges. The associate judges are not elected by the public. Associate judges are appointed by the circuits, and then they're up for whether or not they will be retained every 4 years. Okay. The power structure is different relative to the circuit court judges. Kind of look at that as somewhat of the executive portion of the court system, because we're involved in a lot of the decision making and assistance in the rule making internally in the particular circuit we're in, and then we also typically will then be more involved in managing the different divisions.
Okay, right. Well, in your opinion, why does township government work?
Well, I think township government works for a lot of reasons. If you go back in history, the Declaration of Independence, the majority of the signers came from township government. They benefited by township government, and they understood the value of it. Yes. So it's really had very deep roots, in history. And since then, you take a look at roughly 1849, 1850, there were some constitutional rules that came into effect, and that also recognized 9 townships, which now we have over 1,400 townships statewide. But the reality is that this is where the genesis had come from. And then in the 1970 Illinois Constitution, there was further recognition of the value of township government. So the roots are there, it's worked, and it continues to work.
That's wonderful. Well, as a judge of DuPage County Courts, what do you personally like about township government?
I think many of the community services that township government offers are significant. Of course, many of us know the importance of seniors in need of assistance. There are various programs including hot meals to seniors, pantry services, food recovery services, and all of those things, Toys for Tots, the list goes on and on and on. And all of these services are an example of how township government has worked for the local residents, particularly here in Milton Township.
That's great. How do you see township government serve the community and its citizens?
Well, those were examples, but there's even more. So just so I make sure I get this right, which would be, so low income energy assistance program is one of those things.
General assistance.
Which is general assistance. So one of the things that some of us see, at least on the surface, but when we get under it is, say, Social Security, you have other human services programs, but a lot of people fall through the crack and they are not eligible for either one of those programs.
Right.
As a result, township government steps in to help many of those people that don't have income, that have limited means, so that they can get assistance that they otherwise may not see. That's one of the real important parts about township government.
Well said. Really appreciate the answers that you're giving. It's great. Why is it that smaller local government, added together, levy lowering taxes, spend less, borrow less per capita than larger governments?
Well, I think small government can be, and local government can be more efficient. It can serve the residents at a higher level, and it can do so with a balanced budget with no debt, which I think has really been the example and the hallmark of the services that township government has offered, particularly here in Milton Township. I think that it's really the facts that speak for themselves.
Excellent. I would just really like to say thank you for being here today. Richard Felice, our very own DuPage County judge. If you would just have anything else to comment on at this point as you say goodbyes, Milton Township and the township officials appreciate what you're doing.
Well, I first want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today and to give you some of my thoughts about being a judge, as well as practicing for so many years in the community, and now also emphasizing the value of townships. I can tell you, as indicated, a long-term resident here in DuPage County, living in the Wheaton area, officing in Wheaton as well. It's really been a wonderful community. And I want to thank you as a trustee, as well as all of the people that are involved in local government. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you.